برماشي الليلة سبيته قملا دي منطرا قدرت آلاها ولحصيطة تلقيته أمن سخلة قوم الحليحون.
In southeast Türkiye, in a remote mountain village in the Siirt province, there is a language spoken by only 2 people. This village has 3 names. In Turkish, it is called Ekindüzü. The Old Kurdish name is Hertevin. The Chaldean Christian name in Aramaic is Arton. The language takes its name from the Kurdish name of the village. It is called Hertevin, and it is recognized as a distinct Neo-Aramaic dialect. Aramaic is historically significant as the native language of Jesus Christ. It is a Semitic language, meaning that it belongs to the same language family as Arabic and Hebrew. For over 2,000 years, dialects of Aramaic have been spoken across the Middle East. In southeastern Turkey, northern Iraq, and Syria, the Assyrian community has preserved these dialects for centuries. The Assyrians are one of the world's oldest Christian communities. Originally, these Assyrians followed the Church of the East, which is one of the oldest Christian churches established in the first centuries after Christ. It was historically centered in Mesopotamia and Persia. In 1552, a group separated from this church and united with the Catholic Church. They became known as Chaldean Catholics. They continued to use their ancient Syriac liturgy and Eastern Christian practices while accepting Catholic authority. The Hertevin language was spoken by a group of Chaldean Catholics who lived in and around Hertevin village. Other Chaldean communities in the region spoke different dialects of Aramaic. The historical records do not tell us exactly when Chaldean Christians first settled in Hertevin. However, the community had lived there for generations by the early 20th century. Hertevin sits on a mountainous plateau, approximately 30 kilometers west of the town of Pervari. The village is about 60 kilometers southwest of Lake Van, Turkey's largest lake. By the 20th century, this location placed Hertevin at the northeastern edge of the historical region where Aramaic languages were traditionally spoken. Throughout the Ottoman period, for centuries, the settlements surrounding Hertevin had predominantly Kurdish and Armenian populations. Hertevin speakers were geographically isolated from other Aramaic-speaking communities. This isolation is one reason the language never spread beyond its small area. Kurdish was the dominant language in daily life. Hertevin speakers were bilingual in Kurdish as they lived under the authority of Kurdish tribal leaders. Like most Aramaic dialects at that time, Hertevin was primarily a spoken language. The Chaldean Church used Classical Syriac for its liturgy. Classical Syriac is a different, older form of Aramaic. The Hertevin dialect itself was not written down by its speakers. It remained an oral language used in homes and daily conversation. Before we move on, I would like to kindly ask you to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel only if you're enjoying this video. It immensely helps me reach wider audiences. Thank you, and let's continue. During World War I, upheavals in the region resulted in mass deportations and deaths of many local populations. There is ongoing historical debate about these events. Some scholars and communities characterize what happened as genocide. Others disagree and describe it as casualties and displacement resulting from wartime conditions. I will not really go down into that rabbit hole in this video. Despite all these different views, what is documented is that the Christians of Hertevin village survived this chaotic period. They were protected by a Kurdish tribal leader under whose authority they lived. This protection was exceptional. The village's survival under these circumstances is historically significant. However, this also meant the Chaldean community in Hertevin remained small and isolated. The language continued to be spoken in the village through the 20th century. In the 1960s, several hundred people spoke Hertevin. In the late 1960s, a German linguist named Otto Jastrow learned of this unknown distinct Aramaic dialect while visiting the historic city of Mardin in southeastern Turkey. Mardin is located approximately 150 kilometers southwest of Hertevin. In 1970, Jastrow traveled to Hertevin village to document the language. This marked the first time Hertevin was recorded for Western linguistics. At that time, the village had around 500 inhabitants. Roughly 1/4 to 1/3 were Chaldean Christians who spoke Hertevin. The rest were Muslim Kurds. So the village had already become predominantly Kurdish by 1970, with the Chaldean speakers forming a minority. Jastrow conducted extensive fieldwork. He recorded approximately 34 oral narratives from a Hertevin speaker named Muksi Davut Acar. These recordings total about 3 hours of audio. They are now preserved in Heidelberg University's Semitic Sound Archive in Germany. I also want to share that I tried reaching Muksi Davut Acar's son to invite him for an interview, but I did not hear back from him. It could have been such an amazing addition to this video, but sadly it didn't work out. Here is how Hertevin sounded.
أمن ببلني كلو آزم كلي صيد نهار وترتي قملي قريلني كلو تيلي هولني صواتي وحلي لحمة ومبلي كموتي وقريلني أو مبلي باتري سقلان طورة نطري هزيلنا دوس.
In 1988, Jastrow published a comprehensive 234-page grammar of Hertevin. This book included the recorded texts with German translations. A Japanese linguist, Yoshiyuki Takashima, also published studies on Hertevin in 1990. These academic works represent the primary documentation of the language. Linguists found that Hertevin had evolved in ways different from all other Aramaic dialects due to its centuries-long isolation. It had unique sound patterns that don't exist anywhere else in the Aramaic language family. This makes it significantly valuable for understanding how languages change over time. By 1982, only 3 Chaldean families remained in Hertevin village. By 1990, only 1 family was left. The community had been emigrating outside Türkiye since the 1970s. In 1994, the village was damaged during armed conflict between the Turkish military and the PKK terrorist group. This was part of a broader conflict in which several thousand villages in the region were destroyed or evacuated. Most Hertevin-speaking Chaldeans who emigrated settled in France. They concentrated in the Paris region, specifically in the northern suburbs. Approximately 20,000 Turkish Assyrian Chaldeans now live in this area. Smaller communities also settled in Germany, Sweden, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Some members of this diaspora community may still speak Hertevin, however there is no documented count of diaspora speakers. In the diaspora, the language was generally not transmitted to younger generations. French or other European languages became more dominant. In 2012, a Turkish news report identified 4 remaining speakers in the village of Hertevin, which meant 4 total speakers in Türkiye. Remarkably, these final speakers were not ethnically Chaldean. They were Kurdish people who had learned Hertevin from their Chaldean neighbors and friends before the emigration. By 2017, only 2 speakers remained. One was Nevzat Kızılay, a Kurdish man who had grown up alongside Chaldeans and married a Chaldean woman. The other was Kadri Servitepe, who was elderly and in poor health at that time. These are the last documented speakers of Hertevin in Türkiye. Today, the village of Hertevin is inhabited entirely by Muslim Kurds. There are no Chaldean residents. The churches that once stood in the village are gone. There are virtually no physical traces of the Chaldean community that lived there for centuries. Hertevin is not taught in any school. There are no active language revitalization efforts. Intergenerational transmission has completely stopped. With only 2 elderly speakers remaining in Türkiye, this language will become extinct within this generation. When Hertevin disappears, humanity will lose a unique linguistic window. The sound changes and grammatical structures found only in Hertevin cannot be recovered once the last speakers are gone. It is remarkable that in 2026, a dialect of the language Jesus spoke may still be alive in a mountain village in Türkiye, preserved in the memory of possibly 2 elderly people. But that preservation is temporary. Soon, if not already, Hertevin will exist only in Jastrow's recordings and in the academic studies that documented it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.